So, very good afternoon to each one of you. On behalf of Symbiosis Statistical Institute staff, students, our alumni group, and especially our IKSA, myself, Dr. Sharvari Shukla, I am the director and the professor at SSI. Welcome each one of you to this very interesting workshop on Kolam. So, to be very honest, during the planning phase of this particular workshop, our committee members were thinking whether we should be conducting this kind of workshops, and rightly so, as we come from the mathematics and statistical sciences. No wonder that we do have these kind of queries. Because, to be very honest, what happens, traditionally, art and science have been treated as a two separate disciplines for so many years, and the subjects and the methods have different traditions, and the intended audience we expect is also different. However, I believe that both science and art are human attempts to understand and describe the world around us. And all of you know the buzzing word infographics, right? So not only that, importantly, the motivations and the goal are fundamentally same when you come from the both the streams. Often seen as opposite, science and art both depends on the observation, and I believe they synthesize the information. So the reason why art is necessary to science is that the creativity involves imagination, and obviously imagination is visualization. So when you study them together, then only you all will be very clear to see the impact one has on the another field. Then another most important point which was very convincing for me was related to national education policy, where there is an emphasis on incorporating the IKS in the scientific manner in the higher educational institutions in all teaching and learning processes. So this policy also recognizes that the knowledge of the rich diversity of India should be imbibed firsthand by the learners. So in order to become the, you can say, knowledge power in this century, it is very, very imperative for all of us that we should understand our heritage and teach the world the Indian way of doing the things, where we do have a lot of initiatives happening at SSI, because we started, implementation of national education policy. So as all of you are aware that a great deal of creativity is required for making scientific breakthroughs, and art is just as offered as express the way of scientific knowledge. Both artists and scientists strive to see the world in new ways and to communicate that vision. So artistic techniques are very, very essential tools most of the time for doing the visualization. That is what I believe. Then to understand and disseminate the results of even major scientific research. And while saying so, let me give you one example, and then I will stop by. So recently, you must be knowing that so many of my students are aware that we published one paper in the journal called The Lancet, okay, where the work is related to, broadly you can say, genetics and diabetes. And I will not go into all these details. Interested people may check all these details on my Google Scholar page. But after publishing this after getting this paper accepted in the Lancet journal, and this is where the fun begins, because what has happened, journal has invited us to submit the cover page image based on our research findings, and then with help of some medicos who actually understands the science, genetics, and are good in artists, we submitted the cover page image and it got accepted. And I believe that this is how science meets art, and the two streams work together. And you will see result can be very, very extraordinarily productive. And horizons are broadened, and the gaps of our understanding gets filled up with this kind of interdisciplinarity. So in return of such advances, artists have often lent their services to promote the understanding of science. And it was very, very different and very pleasant experience for me to understand how one should be inculcating all these, interdisciplinarity, even this kind of, lifetime opportunities. So on the same line, we have today we have scheduled this particular invited talk. So I'm very happy to introduce Gauri, who understands both Kolam, the Rangoli art, and the mathematics and statistical pattern. So just to briefly tell you about today's speaker, so Gauri is trustee and CFO of IAVM, a driven learner with diverse skills and interests. She is also a passionate educator and a leader in her field. A practicing chartered accountant since 2002, she is also involved in various social activities. She has successfully launched a commercially viable social enterprise for the underprivileged women. So, on this brief note, I'm very happy to invite Gauri to take this session forward, and I'm so thankful to her for accepting our invitation. Thank you so much, ma'am. Please, it is for you. Please take it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for the warm welcome. Thank you, Prajakti, for introducing me to this audience. I'm delighted to be speaking here. I hope I do justice to what you expect. Most of my research work on Kolam is based on how we connect Kolam with learning and mathematics. So that is what I would be trying to delve in a little bit of understanding of the culture and history of Kolam and related traditions in India. So please allow me to share my screen so that we can understand.
Yes, please.
I hope you all can see my screen now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So before I start, I just wanted to understand, can it be a little interactive if everybody is happy? Then, while going through the types of columns, maybe we all can draw one each in our notebooks or something, if it is fine.
Yeah, I think that should be possible because the participants can unmute themselves and then they are free to talk.
Okay. I'll not be asking too many questions, so don't be afraid. But I would request you to, follow the path and see whether you can make out a few drawings in your paper. Then it will be great. Thank you for the opportunity once again, and let's start. Many of us understand, I know most of you are from Pune, so you understand what a Rangoli is. Where I come from, we call this art Kolam. So I come from Tamil Nadu and I grew up in Andhra Pradesh. So in both states, Kolam or Muggulu are very famous and an everyday ritual which happens. So to give you a brief understanding, I'm sorry, my cursor is... Okay. To give you a brief description, what you might see in Wikipedia or something like that. I know as researchers, we don't like to see the Wikipedia, but just for a common man to understand what it is, they are just those curved line patterns drawn at the entrance of a household in Tamil Nadu. Why I'm saying Tamil Nadu is because I'm using the term Kolam here, and this is what the term we use for our drawings in front of our household. So, and it is an everyday ritual. So we draw it every day and we wash it out the next day. I will be delving on about the ritual a little later when we dig deeper into the types of columns. But is it only located in Tamil Nadu? No, all over India follow a similar pattern or a similar culture of drawing an everyday ritual drawing, like a kolam or a muggu in Andhra Pradesh, what we call as muggu. Like a kolam or a muggu. Like in Maharashtra, Gujarat, in Karnataka, in some parts of Karnataka, they call it rangoli, or we call it rangoli. But in Uttarakhand or Bihar or West Bengal, the term is similar, Aipan or Aripan or Alpana, and so on and so forth. And if you see the materials used or the way this is done, the patterns used, the patterns may be different, but the material used is almost similar. There are two major materials used to draw this kolam in olden days. And I think even in Maharashtra, they use that red gheru or what is called that red powder. And then they also use the white paste made of rice. So this is the same thing what we use in Tamil Nadu. So the material is also almost the same all over India. The designs vary based on ethnicity and culture, but the materials are almost the same. So that there is one type of connectivity, but though it is called differently all over India, there is a type of connectivity with the art form. We are calling it art form now. Later you will know how it is a science also. But this art form is a connecting point when it comes to the ritual or ritualistic thing which we do across India. Coming to that, since I'm talking about Kolam, we'll dig deeper into Kolam, because the uniqueness of this drawing is something which is really amazing. Why I say this? Because traditionally, or with my little bit of research, what I did on Kolam, I could divide it under 3 categories, and they are completely looking different, and the method or way of doing it is also different. So what are the types of columns which you would see in front of a household? Like I said, it's an everyday ritual. What are the types of columns which we can see in front of a household? There are 3 major types. One is called the pulli column, one is called the sikku column, and the third one is called the padi column. Now, these are really different in a way that the time when it is drawn, or on which ritual this is drawn, that signifies what column you will be drawing or we will be drawing in front of our households. Or when there is no column in front of the household, there is a significance for that also. And that is why I categorized this talk into 3 parts. So we will be delving into the 3 different categories of columns, and then connected to the rituals and the customs and traditions connected to those columns, and try to draw some of them maybe, and also see the mathematical connections and historical connections to these columns. So first we'll start with Padi column. Here I put it under number 3, but what is a Padi column? Padi column, Padi means steps in Tamil. So steps means it is a freehand drawing. First of all, Padi column is a freehand drawing, and the artist here, usually we draw it with rice paste instead of rice flour, the Padi column. And we use only one color called kavi, the brick red color, or the dark brick red color, which is used to, add color to the column. There's no other materials used in this column. Now, this art of Padi column, there is this is also called a Kalyana column or a Kanya column. It is basically a line drawing, as you saw in the previous slide, where there was a square and triangle, and as we see the patterns, it is basically a line drawing, and it is called Kalyana column or Kanya column. There is a significance to it. Basically, this column, if you see, you will be seeing them in front of temples in South India during weddings, and also on special occasions like Fridays or festivals, which is like devoted to goddess Lakshmi or prosperity. This column is drawn. Though it is a freehand drawing, its simplicity, at the same time, the dexterity of the artist is very important to draw. And why it is drawn, of course, like I said before, it is for the prosperity, to welcome goddess Lakshmi into the household or into the event, if you are drawing for a wedding or in front of God or in the temple. So there is a little anecdote here. When I was living in Chennai, actually, they take God on the street called Urvalam. I don't know what you call, but they bring the God during the Dasra or Navratri on the streets, and the whole street comes out and draws the Padi column in front of their households to welcome the God to their house. So this is the significance of Padi column, where Padi means steps, so it is drawn in steps. And when we start drawing a Padi column, you will understand why. It's simple name, right? Just there is no hidden meaning behind it. So what are the design elements to it? Now we talk a little deeper. What do we find in a Padi column? It is basically very symmetrical. You can find, as soon as you look at a Padi column, you will see that there is a lot of precision, there is a symmetry, and it's also complex in a way that the number of lines are taken to bring this beautiful form of art. So how we draw, or what are the elements in this padi column? The center of the padi column is always a square, or most of the time it is a square. So the patterns, if you see, or the drawings, if you see, are very basic shapes. So if we try to put the mathematics to it, we find them like very basic shapes. There are no complex shapes here. So it's always a square, or sometimes a star or a swastika is used, but basically straight lines. That's what you would see in a padi column. It's expanded according to the skill of the artist who is drawing the column. It just varies. So my padi column will not be the same every day, or every time I draw it, it's not the same. Sometimes I end up drawing a square with triangle and a semicircle and things like that. Sometimes this is also, I drew it using a whiteboard in my iPad. So it's usually, this I drew only to simplify the version for us to take it forward and be able to draw it actually. So it just goes symmetrical in a pattern. Though it starts with a square, once you finish it, almost forms a radial pattern. The center of the padi column is never kept vacant. It's always, if I don't draw this X here, the pattern X here, there is a dot with a flower or something like that. It is never kept vacant. Why? It symbolizes that is the center of the universe. Everything starts from a dot. So, and that is where the goddess or whoever we think we are welcoming is there in the center of the padi column. So it is never left blank. Before we start drawing, I hope you are ready with that. What are the design elements, or what you can see in them? Basically, they are lines. So they are all parallel lines, intersecting lines, horizontal lines, vertical lines, perpendicular. You would see a lot of lines intersecting and forming these nice intricate patterns. And then these lines are the ones which are forming shapes. You would hardly see a shape which is radial or which is circular in it. Many times, instead of drawing a straight line, you would see the artist drawing a curved line. That would be the only straight or a little curve that would come in a padi column. But most of the time, padi column is always using straight lines. Meaning it is really simple to draw, and you need not have complex structure in your brain to create this artwork. And the finishing touches, what an artist would usually use are in the corners, add a lotus or a spiral or a conch, and that is the only creative touch which happens in a padi column. If we are ready, we can start drawing. Is it okay?
Okay, so all we need is paper and pen, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. The center, I said, is always a square. So we start with a square. And the layer of development happens. So that is why it happens in steps. So I start with a square, but the layer of development is, it's not one line. Usually it is in a double line or a four-bill line. So it's always in twos. So when I increase the layer, I draw 3 more lines parallel to the first line to make it 4 lines. So it is always an even number of lines which we draw, not an odd number. So here I drew 4 lines. Let me know if you want to follow, or I can go fast. But in either way, this is very simple. And the step 2 is, since I usually draw the center initially, because when I take the column outward, it's difficult to go back inside and cover the center. So I cover the center with an X here. And also, again, it's not single line. I use the same pattern of 4 lines instead of a single line. And then the next layer of development would be increase the pattern. So here, either you can see them as another square which is drawn, which is looking as it is behind the square, or you can see them as triangles that are drawn at the side of each square. So in either way, it is still following a symmetrical pattern. It is covering, and again, the number of lines drawn are parallel to each other, and here it is 4 each. So that is the second layer of development. And what happens next is up to the artist. Usually the square is the one which is really standard. And everything else, like what I took here is triangle, and then to increase, or to make the column little more bigger, I used a rectangle here, again using 4 lines. So usually we use 4 lines like this and draw with our hands because it's spaced, so we can easily take it out. So I again used a rectangle here. Here, after the first square, everything else is the artist's imagination, or my mother's imagination, or whoever is drawing, their imagination. And it's never the same, believe me. If I drew one column, or my mom drew one column, tomorrow she will not draw the same column, or she will not remember what she drew it today. So it is the same. It's never, you might hardly find a column which is the same as what was drawn before when it comes to padi column, actually. So here I took a rectangle because I said, like, I'm just using straight lines here to build this column. So I took a rectangle at the tip of each triangle, which came here. So this forms my third layer of increasing. Now I'm going to stop here, and this, I feel like my padi column is complete, so I stop here. But if it is drawn on an occasion of a wedding, or in front of the temple, there is a lot of space to cover. So this development keeps on going. So they might draw another triangle, and then they might continue joining one triangle to another, and bring it more radially. So at the end of the thing, even though only straight lines are used, it covers, and it gets on developing. It starts from one small square, but do you want me to pause? Okay.
We can't hear who's speaking. So your voice is not clear. Otherwise, text in when you can write it in chat box.
Okay. Like I said, should we
Maybe
wait?
we can continue. Yeah.
Like I said, it is in the hands of the artist to take it further. And when it is developed, it magically turns into a radial pattern or a circular pattern, though it is starting from a square. Here it is still, you can see, um, can we,
Just hold on, Firoz. Firoz, we can't hear you. Okay. And before asking the question, maybe I think it's good idea to raise the hand first, so that we will get to know that who is asking the question. So right now, Firoz, we are unable to hear you properly. You write it down in the chat box. Okay, Gauri, we should continue.
thank you. And it can go to any size, usually the padi column, because it's freehand. It's probably easier for us to keep on developing the column from the little square we drew first. Like for example, for today, what we drew was a little square, and then we added a few triangles, and then we added a few rectangles, and we said, okay, we are going to stop here because we are happy with the size of column we have in front of us. Most of the time, the size of column usually depends on the area which we have to draw. Of course, we need that amount of space to draw one, but most of the other time is the reason why we are drawing that column. So in case of a wedding or something, it is magnanimous. You want to show that it is a very happy time. It is like so joy that you want to portray that joyness, so your column also expands so big. But if you're doing it in front of a house as an everyday thing, I have to draw it every day. I might not draw such a big column. I just do a little square and probably add a little conches or spirals at the end, and I'm happy with it, because It's going to be every day. So it is the time or the period which we are drawing, and also the space and the length of the thing which we want to portray is the particular. And what are the finishing touches or the artistic touches here the artist would usually give? Since this is computer generated, I couldn't do too much of lotus here. If I drew, I would have probably drew a lotus here instead of this flower. But maybe after I stop sharing this, I will share a few of my columns, what I draw in front of my household. You will understand what they are. So usually it is a lotus, a spiral, or a conch which appears. These are the three, repeated things which appear. But then again, the same is like each artist's hand is different. What I describe as a lotus would be little different from what some other person is describing as a lotus or their drawing. So these are the finishing touches which you would see in a traditional kolam. Now, now in modern days, we want to integrate. So, and the colors which we put in the kolam, like I said, is basically the padi kolam is always done with a rice paste, not the powder, but it's a paste, a rice paste, which we soak the rice and grind it and use that as a kolam as the first layer. And then we decorate it, the outside layers are decorated with the red brick powder. That is called kavi. The color, actually, again, the name is coming from the color kavi. So that is the first kind of kolam which we learned. Now, we are not stopping with just math, right? Or just art, right? So we need to figure out, why, how we can connect this artwork with something which, a learner can learn in school. My whole understanding or my whole learning about kolam was enthusiasm as a child. But then when I wanted to teach my child, we used to live in the Philippines. So when I wanted to teach my child something culturally I grew up with, she needed a connection. Like, why I am drawing random figures on the floor, first of all, and there is no answer for it. So you will have to dig into the culture. And then when I saw that as an early learner, what you can learn from these drawings, you need not only go to a page of a geometry book and say that, oh, this is a symmetrical figure. I fold this book into half and I see this pattern is equal to this pattern. No, like we have been drawing these columns from more than 700 years. I'm going to say 700 years because again, when we go to the history part of it, you will know why I said only 700 years. We have been using this in front of a household, and this is an everyday learning for a person, not just the female who is drawing it, but for everybody in the household who is coming into the house or who are living in the house, to understand that it's not just an art form, oh, it's not just beautiful, but it has a lot of other elements in it. So for the first form of thing, I just wanted to, stick to the basic or what visually we see in it. Visually we see in our kolam or in an everyday padi kolam. Visually we see those lines. We are drawing those lines there, horizontal, vertical, perpendicular, parallel, and we can make a connection that these two lines never join, and these are the lines that are joining, why they are joining, and so on. So this is kind of an early learning which can happen to a child right from, like, when the child is seeing right from birth, right? And then is that enough? No, I mean, we can also dwell into a lot of other areas of mathematics which an early learner can see. Like, what are the angles? So this is a star padi kolam. Like I said, the basis can be anything. And this is not my work. This artist had used a nice way of putting the lotuses at the end of their kolam, if you see. So this is a form of this is also a form of lotus we draw in the kolam. So we can talk about angles. Then we can talk about symmetry. And we can talk about shapes, how many shapes they can see in each column. Whether are they seeing all the 4 lines as one shape, or are they seeing they're like 4 different squares here and there are little more squares here, and then start multiplying instead of adding, multiplying, and things like that. So we can actually progress from just drawing straight lines to drawing 4 straight lines, and then seeing that 1 times 4 is 4, or and then we are drawing 4 times 4 is 16, and so on. So, and then how many shapes are being formed by just connecting those lines. Is that enough? We can, of course there is symmetry, and these are all just visually we can already make that connection. We need not wait for opening a mathematics book to understand what is what is this visual representation, or what is the connection of this art form to mathematics. So visually there is of course symmetry. There is, we can also see the two forms of symmetry here, the reflection symmetry and the rotational symmetry. Like for here we can see there is reflection symmetry, and how many times. So we can let the learner go around the column and say that whether it is the same as what you saw from that side, or from north, south, east, west. And of course, if you see this swastika column, it's a very beautiful column in a way that they say, or visually you feel it is symmetrical, but it is not. Because if you say you try to close this half, and is this the same as the other half? No, it is not when it comes to swastika column, but there is still a symmetry here. So then you say you rotate yourself. You go from north to south or north to east and see whether the image, what you saw in north is same as what you saw in the east. Then they understand, oh, this is a different kind of symmetry. This is not reflection symmetry. Now we'll have to rotate the column. So, or you rotate or you turn around. And each time you rotate, the column is the same. So again, we can also see and teach early learners what is a reflection symmetry, what is a rotation symmetry, what is the order of rotation, and how many lines of symmetry they have, and so on. So that takes us to yeah. So that is the first form of column which I started with. If you have drawn on a, because I'm not forcing anybody, you can show them here, or it will be nice to share it before I go to the history of column. This is the second part. Can I pause a minute and see if we have something to share?
Anyone has drawn anything, you can just show it by putting your camera on. If anyone has drawn any column, anything you have tried it out. Oh, Josna madam, she has drawn something.
Sorry, I have difficulty.
She has a couple of questions also. Gauri, if you can answer her questions.
Sure. Can I stop sharing because I cannot see the chat box here?
Okay, so let me read it out for you. Okay, fine.
Okay.
So I think she has asked what red color is made up of.
Yes, it is called kavi. It is a kind of a brick. So it is not the actual brick, but it is a naturally occurring stone. But in current days, we end up using the brick powder and more synthetic powders. I don't think it is generally found the original version of it. So we end up using the synthetic versions, which we find.
Gauri, can I add?
Yes.
Yeah,
please.
we called it Geru here in Maharashtra, and it is same as Karvi. And we have some mountains here in Sahyadri range. We have a full one cave made up of Geru.
Oh, wow.
So there is one place near Mahabaleshwar here called Pandavgarh, and on that we will find an entire cave of Geru there. And if you just go there everywhere, you get that orange color on your hand, your face, everywhere. So it's still available.
Okay, no, but where I come from in Tamil Nadu, it's very difficult to find the original kavi. So we end up getting that, synthetic powder which we get. So that's what, and then the hands become really, the color doesn't go off so easily. But Geru is a very natural ingredient. And if you wash your hands, the color goes off. It is a very natural ingredient. But like Prajakti said, it is limited availability, natural resource. Yeah.
That was the only question, right? We can go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's one more
question. Actually, if you could answer, it looks like that you have red background and then drawn on it. While stating, you said we add the color later on. So I don't know how that works.
No. Let me clarify this. The red background I used only for my white to be seen. But in South India, what we use is we don't completely do the red paste first and draw the kolam. Maybe this is a later development. I'm not sure, because when I was learning about Artform of Uttarakhand, they actually do the geru paste first on the floor. After it dries, they do the biswa or the white thing on top. But in South India, from my childhood, when I'm learning, we just clear the floor. So this is the process how it goes. So we wash the floor first. So usually it's mud, right, in olden days, and then we use cow dung mixed with water, and that is used to flatten the floor. And also, if you see, there are a lot of properties, purifying properties of cow dung, they say. So it actually has, how do you, I'm missing the word here. So it is very, it's a natural, I'm sorry, I'm missing the word. So it is used to flatten the floor, and then it cleans it. So, and then we use the white powder or paste to draw the kolam, which is easier at that time, because otherwise the mud floor will not. And then we use the kavi and we just decorate it on the outside. Now, this is a process I've been seeing from my childhood. But then when I'm researching, that's when I came to know that in certain parts, they use the geru first. They after doing the cow dung, they do the geru completely, and then they do the white, the rice paste on top. I hope that clears the whole misunderstanding.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's dig back into our history of kolam. I don't know how to take this. Can you see my
We
screen?
can see your, yeah, we can see your slides.
Okay. Before going to Pulli kolam, I just wanted to talk about the history of kolams. Like I randomly mentioned some 600, 700 years back is when the kolam is drawn in front of our households. Though, I want to claim that it is not, though only the written inscriptions, or there is a written evidence that the kolam in front of the household is drawn, is coming from Madurai Meenakshi Amman Kuram. That is the earliest reference of kolam being drawn in front of a household. That is the earliest reference, and that is dated to 600 or 700 years old. And that is why, as researchers, we want to prove that this happened from this time. So that is the earliest written reference you can find is in Madurai Meenakshi Amman Kuram. But having said that, the history of drawing with rice powder, these geometrical patterns, can be traced back to the time of Vedas. Now, in Vedas, there is a certain kanda of Vedas which talks about rituals. Rituals in the sense how the homokunda or the fire pit is created. There's a lot of mathematics behind it also. We are not going into that. But after making that fire pit, the people who are doing the yajna or the homa are supposed to be drawing certain line patterns on top of the fire pit. Now, this is also a form of kolam. So we can trace it back or push our dating of, kolam back to maybe 10,000, 12,000 years. If we want to date Vedas, we have not yet dated the Rig Veda, but this is the time of Rig Veda. And then also in the excavations in the Indus Valley civilizations, we have found out all the artifacts, some artifacts had drawings similar to a kolam. Then in Mahabharata, also it is mentioned that the gopis, when Krishna had left for Dwaraka, the gopis were in pain, and to forget the pain, they used to draw kolams. And there is a little mention about kolam in Mahabharata also. And some also mentioned that it is there in Ramayana when Rama was returning back after after Ravana being killed and Sita and Rama coming back after their 14 years of vanvas, there is a mention that they have drawn those rangolis or columns in front to welcome Rama back to Ayodhya. So there is a lot of references of Kolam in our ancient texts, whether we can call them historical or we can call them mythological. I'm not debating on that. Now, the other thing is about certain researchers say that the columns are usually drawn on the coastal regions. And these columns represent how the constellations are there. So they look at the sky and see, okay, those are the dots. And they put their dots and then, connect the dots to make those patterns. That is one reference which we found. Now I don't know actually how true it is, but it is a nice reference to talk about that. And why I'm saying that is in Andhra, when we say kolam or muggulu is drawn using chukkalu. Chukkalu means dots, or also chukkalu means stars in Telugu. So there is a connection of why the chukkalu or the dots being placed and then connected with lines is also, that is another connection we can make with the constellations and the drawings which we draw in front of our households. And last but not the least, most of us must have visited a lot of temples around India, and we see these patterns, very nice patterns. And each temple, I think, the right side where you see it is a pattern of a snake with a winding tail, a never-ending tail here. And this is found in a Jain temple. I'm not sure where I picked it up, but this is a Jain temple in Gujarat or Rajasthan. And this temple is 1,200 years old. If you think of the patterns we are drawing in front of a household can only date back to 600, 700 years old, our carvings already state or show a little proof that these kind of patterns were being evolved, or the knowledge of these patterns were there much before that. That is what I wanted to say here with the history. Okay, now let's go into the second form of kolam, which we are going to learn today. This is called a pulli kolam. Now, why a pulli kolam? Because many of us, over a period of time, we think a freehand drawing is really difficult to draw because it comes mainly out of our imagination. Even though we followed the steps and we said there are like 4 simple steps, draw a square and a triangle and a rectangle later. Many times drawing a straight line using this powder or a paste is also a challenge, which is so big to cover the space we have in front of us. So, and for me, I think that is why the pulli kolam evolved or took place, so that, that drawing that straight line and making it really difficult to draw a length of a line, even if it is a feet or a 2 feet long, is going to be difficult. But if you break that 1 feet long of line into 4 or 5 dots, then it is easier to draw for anybody. So everybody or every one of us can be an artist here. And for me, that I understand is the pulli kolam. Why I say is that I feel that pulli kolam is a simplified form of a padi kolam. And here what we are doing is we are placing the dots first in front of our household, and then we are just doing the joining the dots game, like join 2 dots in however manner you want to play around and bring different shapes. And these shapes can be anything. Now there is more diversity because we have a palette in front of us with just dots, and how we are connecting the dots, we can bring more designs there. They are not just squares and triangles. They can form shapes into, this is a plate of fruits, or this is a diya here or a diya here, and so on, and flowers and a lot of other patterns. I could say there are butterflies in Shankranti. They do the pot of the rice and the sugar cane on both sides, or during Christmas we do we do kolam using Jesus Christ and things like that. So there is so much diversity here just by joining these dots. Now What is the significance of a pulli kolam? Now, padi kolam, we said, okay, this is drawn during all the nice festivals, big festivals in front of temples, or during weddings, or even on Friday, even if it is a small padi kolam, we draw a padi kolam. The significance of it was to bring prosperity or Lakshmi into our household. Now, pulli kolam is the simplified version of of a kolam, actually, not just padi kolam. Any form of kolam, I feel like it's the most simplified version, because you can break the complexity of the artwork into small chunks and then do it. So that is a most easiest form of kolam, because you have the dots to guide your artwork. And when is the pulli kolam drawn? It is an everyday kolam. Like it is not necessarily, so there need not be any reason. You can just, for an everyday, I don't want to think big. I don't want to bring the geru and do the red paste and all that and grinding rice every day. So you just use the rice powder and we just place a few dots and join the dots and make the pulli kolam. So it is an everyday kolam. Why it is drawn? Any kolam, there is the main reason is prosperity. Now here I want to pause and talk about the cultural significance of a kolam in front of a household. What it is said that, if you find a kolam in front of a household, which is a pulli kolam or a small kolam in front of the household, it is an everyday thing in that household. Every day the person wakes up, the householder, whoever the lady of the house wakes up, cleans the whole place, makes it nice, welcoming, draws a kolam. That is an everyday ritual. Now, why it is done? So that it's not just to welcome prosperity. There is one reason it is said in Vedas that, a person or soul should feed 1,000 souls in a day. Now, it is very difficult for us to get 1,000 people to our house and eat or feed them, right? So what the kolam helps us is we are using the rice paste. So who comes in front of our house to eat those rice? There'll be these little birds chirping around. There'll be ants which will come and take it. So you will end up feeding 1,000 souls in whatever form with that kolam. That is one reason. The other reason is to see the mood or the condition of that household. When you see a Kalyana kolam or a big padi kolam in front of that house, you will know, or anybody would know, understand that the house is celebrating and we are very much welcome into that house. Or they're inviting a lot of people. So they put a big kolam in front of their house, right? It is a festival, or it is a wedding, or it is a nice occasion in that household. If there is a small kolam, means, yes, there is somebody in the house and, we can go in, so that we can knock the door. Or, they are in a good mood. Now, what happens if there is no kolam in front of the household? Yes, there are days when, we don't put kolam in the house. Means if you're going into that house, please pay caution, because the house is probably grieving. If there is a death in the household, or they are mourning for something, you will not find a kolam in front of the household. Means whoever is coming to the house, it's not like you are not welcome because there is no kolam, but okay, you will play caution, or we'll have to understand that probably they are grieving. So we are not going, hey, hi, hello, and we cannot just go there like that and probably think, oh, okay, are you fine? Are you okay? Or, how can I help you, kind of a mood for that house. So these are the three conditions, or how the kolam helps a person who is entering the house to understand the mood and the mentality or the condition of the persons living in the house. That is also one of the significance of drawing a kolam in Tamil Nadu, actually. Going back to our pulli kolam, this is the dots which guide how we draw the kolam. So we know how much, how big a column is to go, or how big a column is to end with. Unlike padi column, where it is just developed and with the mood, whether you end up doing a small one or a big one, it develops. You can keep developing, and you can start a small one and end as a very big one, right? But when it comes to pulli column, the dots guide, or they are the main the design element of the pulli column, where the dots will say this is the size of the column, it is going to end here only. So, and the column is made connecting the dots. But in that also, the way of placement of dots decide the shape and design of the column. So how are the dots placed? There are two methods of placing dots, and both the methods have again an increasing and two orders to it. So there are literally four kinds of way you can place the dots. Here, the first two ways are the straight, which is called the near pulli column. So if you see here, it is really tiny. I don't know if you can make it out. The dot is placed against each other or in front of each other. So that is called the near pulli column. Let me try to draw if I can see. So if I place one dot here, say I'm going to draw a 4x4 column. So, okay. So there are 4 dots here. And near pulli column is, I'm just going to place 4 more dots in front of each other. So you're going to literally form a grid. Sorry, why my pen is not working. So, yeah. So we're going to literally form a grid here. So this is one form of putting a near pulli column. So we are getting a 4x4 square here. Sorry, they are not really, you can see this little slant here. But again, this is an easier way of making a square column here. So this is called a near pulli column. So the dots are placed in front of each other, straight to each other. And the other one is called the idukku pulli column. So it is angular. Angular in the sense, how am I saying it? If I put, sorry, my pen decided to go against me. So if I put, instead of putting a dot straight, the dot goes angular or in between the first two dots. So it goes here. I think you can get it. So they actually go in between the first two dot space. So that is called the idukku pulli column. Again, in these both kinds also, the order of putting the column also defines the shape of the column. In idukku pulli column, mostly you will end up getting a triangular or a hexagonal shape. But in near pulli column, you can actually get a square or a diamond. How are you going to get a diamond here? Actually, if you do the placement of dots in increasing and decreasing order. So I can do the same near pulli column, but I can put the dot, one dot first, and then the next row will have 3 dots. So they are one in front of each other, but then in an increasing order. The next row will have 5 dots like that. So it is still a near pulli column, but then the order of the column is increasing and decreasing. So that is another method of placing the dots. Okay. So that is the idukku pulli column and near pulli column. So how we are placing the dots actually guides us for the length and shape of the column. And what are the shapes we can do? Actually, there are only 2 shapes. How we are joining the dots. The 2 dots we can actually join with a straight line, just draw it straight, or make an arc. Now, when we are making an arc, then we can actually bring shapes like a circle by joining 4 dots in 4 arcs and so on. So then we can actually interpret the same dots in multiple ways and bring more designs to it rather than just drawing a square and a triangle and a rectangle like a Kalyana column, right? So these are the little examples. If you want me to pause a while for you to draw one of them, I can pause. I'm not doing the steps here because it's just joining the dots. Let me know if you want to draw a near pulli column, or we'll continue to the next kind of column called the sikh column. We'll do a little bit of math with the dots, of course, and then move on to sikh column. Sherwari ma'am, Prajakti.
Yeah, I think we should continue because simultaneously we are also trying. Okay, but
okay. So let's continue. Yes. So these are the little, I drew little ones just to understand how near pulli column and idukku pulli column will look. So if you see this slide, all these three are representations of, or near pulli, dots are placed in front of each other like this. But then how we are joining the dots, here I used an arc to join, and here I used a straight line to join. So if you do an arc, you might get a shape like a dish or a circle and so on. If you can still do the straight line and still come to the same diya pattern. Here it is 4 by 4, both of them are square, and here it is an increasing and decreasing order of drawing the pattern. So they are different ways of placing the dots, and how we are placing the dots will define our kolam. And this is Idikkupulli kolam. Idikkupulli kolam mostly goes into a hexagonal pattern to bring in the symmetry. It can even, since we are putting dots in front, in between each other, it also takes a a V shape or a triangular shape. So if I continue the dots here till 1, it will go to a triangular shape like this. But to bring that symmetry, most of our artwork in kolam, in an Idikkupulli kolam, ends up in a hexagonal shape or a very radial shape. So these are the little examples of Idikkupulli kolam. Of course, we want to learn math or want to see how, just joining the dots game here, teaches us a lot of things. If you see the shapes which are forming here, if you see the shapes which are put together, actually we can say, okay, let's try counting shapes, or let's try how many shapes you can find, how many different shapes you can find. That is one of the basic questions we can ask ourselves as learners or to our learners. Can you count, and what method are you using to count the shapes? But if you understand these shapes, when we are placing the dots itself, we can actually talk about how these shapes join to form a different shape, and how tessellation or tiling can be understood using these columns. We are putting the same shapes here. We say we are putting 3 triangles here, right? So you can understand how tiling works with 3 equilateral triangles, how it forms this a trapezium or something like that. So how tiling or tessellation works also can be understood with this simple column here. Then of course the placement of dots. This is actually most amazing way of learning the shape of numbers. What do we mean by shape of numbers? The numbers can take shape, or what forms a square. How, here I put 6. 6 times 6 is 36. How 6 times 6 is 36 is formed using just putting or placing these dots on the floor. Okay, and also the shape of numbers, not just whether it is a square number, we can actually go on to understand what are triangular numbers and what are hexagonal numbers just by placing these dots on the floor, right? So just to give you a little more understanding of how we can learn triangular numbers from this, just one example with Idikkupulli or the angular dots which we put. Triangular numbers are just numbers which form a triangle. 5. It can start from number 1, and then if the base is 2, we place one more dot on top of it, or and then 1 plus 2 is 3. The second triangular number is 3. Now, if the base is 3, the triangular number here we are counting is 1 plus. So we start from the base, we start from number 1 and end till base, and we keep adding the numbers. So here, if the base is 3, the triangular number is 1 plus 2 plus 3, that is 6. And then if the base is 4, the next triangular number is actually 6 plus 4. So the previous triangular number plus the base, the new base, the next number here, 4. So if you want to guess what is the next triangular number, can I get an answer? What will be the next triangular number? So each triangular number is the sum of consecutive numbers. So depending on the base. So if the base is 2, sum of 1 plus 2 is 3. The triangular number is 3. So if the base is 5, the triangular number will be 15. So basically 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1. That is 15. I think I have an answer in the chat box, but I'm not putting the chat box because it will obstruct my view. I'm sorry about that. So that is a little example of how we can connect the mere way of placing dots and then understanding numbers, how they are square numbers or triangular numbers or hexagonal numbers in a way. So that is with pulley column or the placement of dots. But let me tell you, the placement of dots, the pulley column evolved further into sikku column. Now, the sikku column, I feel, is the most complex kind of drawing, which, which is like really to decipher actually. It's not just joining the dots here. You are actually intertwining with your drawing around each dot you are placing. So, and this form of column is found mainly in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. I haven't seen this form of column drawn in other parts of India. Though I can talk about references of similar patterns being drawn in native Australia or in South Africa, but this talk is not about that, so I'm not connecting those dots here yet. But staying true to the topic of column, the sikku column is mostly you will find only in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh and probably some parts of Karnataka. And what you can see with sikku column, I'm sure many of you saw this or drew this form of drawing in front of your households. There is unity. There is something like a completeness when you see. It's not joining the dots. You're like intertwining your line with the dots. But so there is complexity, but at the same time, the symmetry and beauty of the column is maintained with the sikku column. Now, what is a sikku column? Sikku means not or a problem. That is sikku in Tamil. Now, just like pulley column, the placement of dots determine the shape of the column or the size of the column. This column is also called a suri column or a kambi column. Kambi column means a thin wire. So basically, it's like putting a wire around each dot. Or a suri means a circle or a circular pattern or a radial pattern. So it's also called a suri column or a kambi column. In Telugu, it's called melikala muggulu, means like which turns in weird ways. So that is a sikku column. So again, like a pulley column, the sikku column also the placement of dots determine the size of the column. But there are two basic rules to be followed to draw this column. All linear strings must close. Now, if I say start with a line, that line going around the dots should be a closed circuit. It should not be an open-ended. There are no ends of the line. And all dots must be encircled or connected. So these are the two problems. Sikku means also a problem. These are the two problems of the sikku column. So like I said, it is a column drawn by interlacing the lines around the dots placed. And it's also called a kambi column or a suri column. Now, there is a fun fact here. In my childhood, I used to be afraid of drawing a sikku column because they scare me saying that if you're not able to draw a sikku column, if your circuit is not complete, you will end up having a lot of problems in your life because you're not able to solve this little problem in front of you. So I'm always scared to draw the sikku column, thinking that, that scare of, oh my God, I'll have a lot of problems in my life if I'm not able to draw a sikku column. Well, that is just a fun fact. Or, sometimes they say drawing too many sikku columns will lead too many problems in your life. It's all the female talk which happens, or the social exchanges that happen. That was our Instagram at that time, right? So those were the social exchanges. So I mean, drawing a sikku column means the artist is like really she knows how she can connect the dots or how she can entangle a knot, entangle a sikh here. So that is it. So how are we going to untangle the knots? So there is always, when you see a sikh column, it is really amazing. Oh my God. And you don't know how many lines are there in it. So there is always like the first question comes, how to draw a sikh column is where do I start? Where do I start the sikh column? Because whether I'm going to draw it in one line. So it is one circuit which goes around all the dots placed in front of me, or I can use, there are two ways to do it. It's either called a single kambi or many kambis, so multi-kambi. Kambi is the thin wire we refer, right? So it can be a single line which is connecting all, it's one circuit which goes all around, or a multi-kambi. Now the single kambi kolam, which is one circuit, is also called a Brahma Muri kolam. I'll talk a little bit of Brahma Muri kolam at the end after we finish this talk. But that is one. That's the second problem we have in front of us. And then Sikh column can also be symmetrical or asymmetrical. So whereas when it comes to drawing a Padi column or a Pulli column, most of the time, 90% or 99% of the time, it is always symmetrical, right? Because the column is developed from the center to the ending. Or when it comes to a Pulli column, we usually start from four corners, draw the same pattern on all four corners and bring it to the center, which is easier to, finish the column. But when it comes to a Sikh column, when you're untangling those knots or circling those knots, it need not necessarily have a symmetrical pattern. So there are columns which are asymmetrical also. What are the design elements? Again, going back one step behind what we spoke about in Padi column, it is the same way of drawing, placing the dots. So the dots can be straight or diagonal. It can be near pulli or iduk pulli. If you see these two patterns, these two look very similar, but then the placement of dots are very different. Both are near pulli, but then this goes in increasing and decreasing order, and this is a square order. So again, placement of dots define our column in how they are going to appear in shape and form. The two conditions, like I said, we'll have to knot every dot. So every dot have to be covered by a knot. So they cannot be a vacant dot without being covered in a Sikh column. And then it doesn't mean that every column should be a Brahma Muri column. It can be single line or many lines. And then pattern directions, they are symmetrical, asymmetrical, and it also are used in borders like this. If you see lot of, currently we use these borders for a lot of invitation cards or designing our walls, or, even, tulsi ka, this thing, the pot, which is designed using these kind of columns. So there are a lot of applications to it. Now, this is the most fun part for me. For letting my audience draw the Sikh column. So I'm not going to leave you. I would love you to start with a plain canvas or a plain paper in front of you. You can, the simple method is placing a 4x4. I can even do 3x3 if you want, but I thought 4x4 will be nice. Can we start? Here, the number of rows is equal to the number of columns. And then you can decide whether you want to do a single line or many lines. The two examples of the 4x4 are here. This is the first one. This has many lines. It has, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, 4 circuits covering the dots. Now, if you see, this has a single line. There is no beginning or end to this one in yellow. So you can choose either of them to try figure it out, and then I'll show you the solution. I'll give you a few minutes maybe. Okay. Do we have any solution in front of us? Maybe I'll stop sharing for a minute to see your work. Thank you, Joshna, for sharing that. Lovely. Do you draw columns in your household? Or is this your first attempt?
First attempt, but we have similar rangolis in Maharashtra as well.
Awesome, awesome. Anybody else? Yes, Prajakti, I want to see yours.
Gauri, it looks simple, but it is not simple, I know.
Okay. Let me show you. It is like Josna, right? Like Josna showed. It is a never-ending line. This is a Brahmamudi kolam. My pen somehow refused to listen to me today, but I'll still draw. Here you go. Sorry, it decides to not listen to me. Okay, so this is a Brahmamudi, means you can start it from any place. So I'm going to start from here, top right, and then end it. So it ends at the same place. So here it's the best way to teach directions to anybody actually. Go north, go south, go east, go west. So I'm going one to the right. Okay, so for me, if I say this is east, and then go north, again, right angle to the north, turn around, go right again to the east, turn around, this time comes south, turn around and go west. And this is how, it's a very nice way to teach directions or give a code or a command. Actually, I'm really sorry, my pen is really refusing to listen to me today. Sorry. There you go. I think now you figured it out how it works. I'm going to stop. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop that. So it basically, if you see, you're going from one direction, turning around the dot which is placed, and then following south, and then east, and then north again, and east, and south, and west, and so on. So this is a very nice way of teaching directions to young children. But if you are really into coding and higher mathematics, or higher understanding, then this helps to write instructions actually. So this is an excellent way to understand instructions, whether visually, yes, it is looking really difficult, but then once we are able to code it, or find out the code behind this column, it becomes really simple and easy. There you go. So once we are finished with the column, what happens next? Are there any finishing touches to it? This column seems to be really, for the Pulli column, of course, the finishing touches are usually the colors you put to fill in the shapes you have created in a Pulli column. But in a Sikh column, the never-ending patterns, it's really hard to bring the artistic touches in it. But still, many artists have brought out different ways of drawing the column with just that white powder. So usually, what happens, or how the finishing touches really take place, are to bring these horn-like extensions, curved patterns and horn-like extensions, and create a lotus or a curve or a conch around these extensions. And here, if you see, the artist had decided to draw something else apart from the column in the end, or instead of doing a curved line, do a rectangular lines to bring that creative touch. So again, these two are same columns, the top these two are the same columns, but then you see they are done by different artists. So they look really different. So again, they are certain artistic touches, and each artist brings his or own value to their Sikh column, even though to finish the Sikh column is just a simple thing to do. Okay, what is the math? I already gave a little hint when I told coding there, but there's some more to it. There is some more we can explore using the column. Do you remember these puzzles? I'm sure every one of you had played these on paper as a child, when the class is happening. I know there are teachers here also, and your students would also have been playing those in front of you sometime, where, without lifting the pen, you will have to draw the shapes. And many times we end up cheating, putting a finger in between and then jumping. But there is a very nice theory behind it, whether how each shape is being able to draw without lifting the pen or not. And this theory is actually called the Euler's graph theory. And why I am connecting this with column, like if you see in a Sikh column, it is a never-ending line, especially the Brahmamudi column. Are you able to connect all the dots without lifting the pen off your paper? That is the first question you're going to put. Even though if it is just one circuit or many circuits, the circuit has to be complete, right? You cannot leave an end there. Now, what is the graph theory? Before that, there is this, or how the graph theory came into place is called the first problem was the Konigsberg bridge problem, where there were 7 bridges. Okay, it's a very old puzzle, and connecting the path. Now, the problem is that you will have to cross all the bridges, but only once and never repeating, but then all the paths have to be connected. So that is called the Konigsberg bridge problem. Now, Euler argued that this is not possible, at least in that where the 7 paths are, that is not possible. And why it is not possible? That is when he came up with the graph theory. Now, study of graphs, which consists of nodes or vertices and connected by edges. Right? Here, if you see a simple graph, which is forming a triangle, they are connected. There are 3 nodes here, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, and they are connected. The loop can be completed when the degree of the vertex or all the vertices are even. What is the degree? Is the number of nodes, number of nodes connecting to the edge here. So here, if you see, the point 0 has 2, point 1 has 2, and point 2 has 2. All the three nodes have even number of edges connected to it. So this completed loop can be drawn without lifting the hand, or this path can be complete joining all the nodes or vertices. So now, if you see our own Sikh column here, it actually helps us understand or see whether the placement of dots, are we able to connect it without lifting the hand or not, and all the dots have to be circled, right? So if we see the number of vertices, number of lines joining each dot, connecting each dot, we can say whether this is a Brahmamudi column or not, whether this is a never-ending path, the path is complete with the dots placed, or there are more than one paths to it. Now, if you see this simple column, this is 3 dots and 1 dot, 1 dot, 3 dot, and 1 dot. This is the most simple column. And in this, if you see, each dot has 4. So they are 1, 2, and if you circle. So if you see, each dot is connected by 4. And sorry, I removed. And if you see this column also, again, each had 4 lines connecting to it. If you see, there are 4 lines here, there are 4 lines here, there are 4 lines here. So when you see the joining or the intersection of each point connecting, you will see it is all even in number. And that is when you say that this is a Brahmamudi column, or it is a never-ending path. So before I end, or I said I'm going to talk about Brahmamudi Kolam. Now, why it is called a Brahmamudi Kolam or a never-ending path is connected to Brahmamudi Kolam. It's a very interesting connection I could make when I was studying on columns. Just like the eternal Brahman listed in the Vedas, where there is no beginning or end. The Brahmamudi Kolam, which we draw in front of our household, can also be started from any point and can be seen as a column with no beginning or no end. So with that, I end my this completes the whole session. We discovered, or we digged into, or we learned about 3 types of columns here. First is the Pulli Kolam. First is the Padi Kolam. The second one was the Pulli Kolam. And the third one was the Sikh Kolam. There were 3 different kinds, even though they are all columns. They were completely different kinds. Little bit of relation to one another, and little bit of complexity in each in their own way. And we also try to understand how each column helps us to learn mathematics and also design. The design elements or scientific elements behind it. We try to understand cultural significance of drawing a column in front of our household. And then we also had fun. I know some of us drew, some of us did not, but that's okay. And also explored our creativity. And I really loved that how you had explored, even if it is for the first time, drawing a Sikh column here in this session. So what is the learning behind all learning of an everyday thing which probably we miss seeing actually, many of our households have it, but we somehow miss connecting the dots there. The concept here, or understanding our ancient traditions, we can really understand that learning doesn't start from a textbook or need to be ended in a textbook. It can start from any place around us. It is interdisciplinary. We can, like, Sharwari madam started with an art, and how art can also teach math. And this whole talk is also aimed about this an everyday ritual art. Actually, it is not even considered as a big art form. It's an everyday ritual, and how we can connect it to learning mathematics here, right from angles and shapes to graph theory. We just covered that. There's a lot more actually in it, including molecular theory, and including understanding music and patterns with columns and all that. Since this is a little talk, I decided to concentrate on easy things for an introductory talk. So I limited my talk until graph theory and understanding triangular numbers. Yes, learning is multidisciplinary, and then it is continuous, like how we are drawing column as an everyday ritual. When I stop, probably my daughter will do it. It is and I learned it from my mother, right? So it is a continuous process. It's never ending. Just like that, even learning is continuous. We don't close our textbooks and say we are done with learning. I shout out to all the students over here that if you think you finished your a degree in a bachelor's degree, you will end up doing, oh, I need to do masters, and then I need to do a PhD and so on. That is with the schools and colleges, but otherwise, even as I'm a chartered accountant, for us also it doesn't end every year. There is somebody, a finance minister, sitting in the center and giving us new guidelines, so we'll have to learn again. So every field has a continuous process of learning. It never ends after, like, I'm done with everything. So it is continuous. Just like that, even the traditions which continue teaches that we don't stop here. It is a continuous process. So with this, I end my talk. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to share what I learned. I'm open for questions or discussion.
So participants, any question for Gauri or any query? So actually, Gauri, while looking at the Brahmapudi column, that time I understood the significance of those 4 lines. Because at the beginning you said that you have to be in, you have to draw it in 4 lines. So,
yeah.
But it's very interesting. If there are no questions, then maybe I will like to conclude, because you have made my job very easy, because you have very beautifully summarized the session. And what I could see is, very interesting form. And when we go deeper and deeper, maybe student will start understanding, its use in nowadays in computational world, right? How these kind of art forms are really useful. And personally, I face so many, so many times this kind of, visualization helped me out. So on this ground, I feel that Brahmapudi or Sikko column is really very difficult to draw, but with practice, I think we should be able to make it. And nonetheless, you have given us the tips. So, if there are no other questions, then I must thank Gauri. It's very interesting and very thought-provoking workshop which you have conducted. And thanks, Prajakti Madam, for introducing Gauri to SSI. So I thank all the participants, and we are really looking forward, Gauri, to have many more involved workshops on this particular, topic. So thank you so much for connecting with us, and I thank all the participants and the staff members and the committee members for helping us out in organizing this particular workshop. Special thanks to Josna ma'am, who I guess connected from Philippines. So thanks for connecting with us. Thank you, Gauri.